Nowadays, baby killing is generally frowned upon. There are better ways to quiet them down. But in Japan, it used to be a common practice. It had a long history, but most of what we know is from the Edo period. The practice was trending in the first half of the Edo period. About 20% of children were killed by their parents, which sounds like a high number until you have kids. It seemed to have been popular in northeast Japan and in a few provinces in the southwest. Central Japan had less of it, but it still happened. So, why did they do such a thing? Didn't they love their kids? Well, see if you can guess why they did it from this popular word that people used for baby killing, Mabiki. It was a farming term, and it meant thinning out. If you plant seedlings too close together, they won't have room to grow. You have to thin them out, or space them out, to allow the entire field to thrive. The idea was, if you had fewer children, you could better raise each child, allowing the entire family to thrive. It was the responsible thing to do. Now, not only did prostitutes perform Mabiki, you could argue that, well, hey, they lived desperate lives, they didn't have a choice. But the general public did it as well. Let's go over how they did it, and then talk about the more interesting question of why they thought it was moral, and why in the world did people despise twins. After a midwife helped a mother deliver her baby, the midwife would ask the family if they wanted to keep the child or send it back, meaning send it back to the spirit world. The decision was up to the parents, but these were Asian families, so don't underestimate the weight of grandma and grandpa's opinions. Relatives also chimed in, as well as the entire village. That's right, your neighbors could pressure you to kill your kid. Even Kyle across the street, who never returned your vacuum cleaner. Having too many children was a burden to the community in many ways. For example, Japan had a gift-giving culture. When your kid got sick, or when your kid had a coming-of-age ceremony or something, other villagers would come bearing valuable gifts for your family. They were happy to do it, but make them come to your 10th son's hair-cutting ceremony, and they may just start wishing that you had murdered the little punk. If the parents chose Mabiki, it was always right after birth. Killing the kid after this point, after already choosing to keep it, was not okay. The midwife had two opposite duties, to deliver the baby and to kill it, if necessary. However, most commoners didn't have a midwife. Women usually delivered babies by themselves, alone. Maybe her mother would be in the same room, but she would just squat down, do a few pushes, and squeeze out that little bundle of joy and suffering. Without a midwife, the woman would send back her baby with her own hands. There were many ways to mabiki a child. Babies were terrible at fighting back. Strangling and smothering were the most popular techniques. Smothering with a wet piece of paper was common. Neglect was another method. Sometimes the family just left the baby alone at home without giving it a blanket or food or water, like it was that indoor plant you bought after you saw it at a friend's house. The results were the same. Abandonment was another option. A family might leave the baby on a busy street or at the door of a rich person's house in case anyone wanted to adopt it. I know, you work your entire life to become rich, and what do you get? 20 babies on your porch. After Mabiki, they didn't usually hold a funeral. Some parents wrapped the body in straw or paper and released it into a river. Could have been because they thought rivers carried the souls of the dead to the spirit world, or because rivers were simply natural trash collectors. Some parents buried the body under the floorboards of the house. There was a belief that burying it this close would allow the baby's spirit to more easily return to the family at another time, the family that killed it. Sending back the baby was more popular than aborting it. Most peasants didn't have the right drugs and tools to abort a pregnancy, but everyone had hands. Birth control methods were hard to get, or even considered dishonorable to the wife. Mabiki made more sense to them. Different societies have different views on personhood. At some point in your life, you leveled up from being just a life to being a person. Being a person came with a bunch of rights, allowing police to violate them. Where this personhood line is drawn depends on the culture. It can be drawn at conception, or at birth, or at your first taste of boba tea. Before that, you were not a real person. For the places that practiced mabiki in Edo, Japan, that line was a few minutes after birth, when the parents decided to keep the child. Only then did the baby become a part of the community. The Japanese actually cherished life. When making silk, they put up little monuments for the silkworms that died. Farmers even made monuments for the little bugs they killed when hoeing their fields. But what they rarely did was make monuments for the babies they sent back, showing that they did not see newborns as full living beings. There was also this idea that children gained personhood gradually. Before 7 years old, people thought children existed partly in the human world and partly in the spirit world. Parents did little rituals as their child grew older, like they would give the child her first bath or her first haircut, her first boba drink. Each ritual made her a little more human, tied her a little more to the physical world. This was why many people thought that losing an adolescent was sadder than losing a toddler. It was in fashion at the time to have smaller families. In the immortal words of the notorious B.I.G., "Mo children, mo problems," or something like that. People usually had 2 to 3 kids, although farmers with bigger land holdings had more. People looked down on couples who had too many kids, saying they bred like dogs. One grandma said, "Having more than 1 or 2 grandchildren is quite useless." Her family get-togethers were very awkward. Look, sometimes you gotta kill a few kids to be a good parent. If you have a bunch of siblings and feel like you don't get enough attention, just think about all the attention you would get if your parents got rid of a few brothers. People had limited time and resources. They wanted to maximize the resources devoted to each child. Mabiki was used as birth control after birth and as a form of family planning. Parents wanted healthy children who could grow up as fast as possible and help out with farming and other child labor activities to ensure that the household prospered. And that meant newborns who seemed unhealthy were the first in line to Spirit Land, the unhappiest place not on Earth. The more care a child needed, the more it burdened the family. Children already tended to die young. Raising a kid just to have it die was a big waste of money that could have gone to prostitutes. Today, parents often say they love all their children equally to not hurt anyone's feelings. But the reality is, children don't care. They have a favorite parent too. Back then, you had better hope that your parents liked you. So, how did parents choose who to mabiki? Well, here are some popular traits they looked for. Infants born prematurely, they were seen as weak and unlikely to survive childhood. Babies born with any physical deformity were basically toast. You'd be surprised what they saw as deformities. If the umbilical cord was around its neck, they thought its fate as an adult was going to be death by hanging, so they often chose to give it death by parents instead. They called children born with teeth devil children. Twins, triplets, and any multiple births. People hated multiple births. They said it was proof that the woman was a rampant cheater. It was called having animal pregnancies, because only animals gave birth to that many offspring. Some even said that women who had quadruplets were literally animals, or animals in disguise. Being the wrong sex. Parents preferred boys, sorry girls, but they also didn't want the boy-girl balance to be too skewed. So even if you were born a boy, if your parents already had 2 boys, you were crawling on thin ice, you baby. Get ready to have your ass mabikied. No one needs 3 boys. Bad timing. Being born at an unlucky time, according to superstitions and religious beliefs, also didn't bode well for the baby. Parents didn't always do the deed themselves. Historians found evidence of a group of entrepreneurial women who offered a service to parents to kill their babies. It was a very successful business. Parents would go knock on the door of babies are dead and pay a fee to send back their newborns. This shows us that people did see mabiki as unpleasant and didn't like doing it with their own hands. Or perhaps it was that Shinto idea of pollution again. Killing was an unclean and impure act. It was best to stay away. This also shows that mabiki was practiced a lot, often enough for these women to make a good living off of it. Now, you may be tempted to think that all of this happened because people were poor. They had to send back their kids or the family would starve. Desperate times called for desperate baby murder. That would be easier for us to understand, right? Yeah, but it would be wrong. The rich and poor did it equally. Mabiki was not a result of poverty, it was normal family planning. Children were an investment, and the goal, the thing that made all of this moral to them, the entire point of it all, was the survival and success of the household. The most important thing was not the individual, but the household. There's a Chinese story that makes this point, the story of Guoju. The Japanese really admired this Guoju guy. Guoju lived with his wife, son, and mother. They were poor and barely had any food. His mother often shared her food with his toddler son, starving herself for her grandson. Seeing this, he decided he would kill his son so that his mother may live. His wife was in tears, but agreed because they could always have other sons later. Goju began digging a grave in preparation for the killing, but his shovel hit something hard. It was a pile of gold under the earth. The gods in heaven were impressed that he was such a good son that they rewarded him, and he didn't have to kill his son after all. This story resonated with many Japanese at the time. Now, Goju was prepared to kill his toddler son, which the Japanese did not do. They only sent back newborns. But the point was clear. The household came first. This sense of duty extended to dead family members and ancestors, who were also part of the household. At some point, Buddhist priests came up with a lucrative idea of offering ritual services that could help dead family members in the afterlife. Families had to pay for them, of course. Priests would perform memorial services that, among other things, could remove the dead person's soul from the endless cycle of rebirth and suffering, elevating it to an ancestral god. These services had to be done regularly. It was a subscription service. It allowed people to help their parents or ancestors even after death. Priests also offered services to help your descendants. A poor family that did not have the money to pay for these services failed in their duties to their ancestors, and more well-off families could still pay for more services rather than use that money to raise another kid. This was why having a prosperous household was so important. These rituals gave people even more incentive to send back extra kids. Just to be clear, once parents chose to keep their kids, they did love and care for them like any other parent would today. We see from diaries and stories that parents were grief-stricken at the death of a child. Some parents would stay up all night caring for their babies if it showed any hint of illness. In the second half of the Edo period, things started to change. They had a crisis. The population didn't grow at all. The government and temples blamed Mabiki for this, so there was a big push to stop people from sending back their babies. But that interesting topic is for another video. Hey, we have a quiz question today. Random winner gets a prize. Which giant yokai is all dark and likes to smash ships? Answer in the comments. I'll choose a random winner from the correct answers in 24 hours. Also, if you don't want to count on luck, you can get this merch by signing up to my Patreon if you want. Some of the tiers give you merch, and you'll be supporting this little channel and allow me to make more videos. Thanks! Alright, we have a new Emperor patron, Jared Silk. He's a smooth guy. We also have some new patrons, Hannah Mills, mess with her and she will kill, KT, Windweaver, the airbender, and Mikhail Sterachek. Alright, I love you and spread the knowledge.